Greetings, mortals. Welcome to another episode of Late Night Serotonin with my guest, Spruce Kind. My pronouns are she, her, and they, them. I'm the Empress of Smiles. You may call me Brooke. And today we're going to be talking about taxation is theft and the duty of the citizen. I'll let my guest go ahead and introduce themselves.
Right. I am Spruce Kind, pronoun she, her, and this is gonna get interesting.
Yeah, all right. So let's open the topic. A lot of people say taxation is theft. What are your thoughts?
Um, I think that, well, at least for the most part, taxes pay for schools and roads being built and a lot of the things that we need. So, I mean, if we're gonna go the you have to pay your way, I think they're necessary.
Yeah,
And yeah.
I hold a pretty similar view. I think taxation is theft is a really dumb position to hold because taxation is like one of the most institutionalized forms of like civilization. I see it as like taxes are like the price you pay for civilization
Mm-hmm.
in such a way that like you mentioned schools. That's a really important factor. Having
Mm-hmm.
widespread public schooling available to people, and while, yeah, you do pay for schooling with your taxes, it's not nearly as expensive as a private schooling system. But
I
also
can
things like
attest to that.
roads, you know? And, you know, a lot of these types, they don't really think, at least I feel from my conversations from them, they don't really think about the ramifications that, like, all of the things taxes pay for. It pays for, like, police forces, it pays for schooling, it pays for the military, and it pays for business subsidies, which is really important for certain sectors of the economy. And it pays for things like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and like a
Farming
social safety net.
subsidies.
Say that again.
Farming subsidies.
Farming subsidies, yeah, that's also super important.
Mm-hmm.
The American government has a history of just buying ungodly amounts of dairy and cheese, which is hilarious.
Yes.
Like their common art, like I think it's really easy to see like the taxes, the money coming out of your your account at the end of the year when you're paying your taxes, and it's a lot harder to see where all those taxes are going. A lot of people, like, if you bring up roads,
Mm-hmm.
which is my go-to example. Having massive roads that you don't have to pay for every single like, imagine if you had to pay $5 or $10 like a Netflix subscription to use roads. Like, that would be god awful. That'd be horrendous. And yet that's what toll roads were for centuries until the federal government stepped in and said, no, we're going to pay for all the roads. We're going to pay to fix them and keep them up. And it's not just the federal government that pays for roads. It's more like state level and local level. But still, we wouldn't have the widespread infrastructure we do nowadays without funding from taxes. And always, it's another thing that I always push back on. It would be much more, the world would be much more expensive without taxes
Would.
because the
Um,
government doesn't have a profit motive, whereas companies want to turn a profit, so they'll charge more.
mm-hmm. Well, and I think that to some extent, um, as far as like the army and the military goes, we have been relatively, and I say relatively, isolated based on just sort of the geographical location of our country. So we don't really see as much what the military does. And then,
Yeah, it's
um,
all overseas.
right. And, and, um, and schools are, well, schools are always getting ragged on, so it's easy to not appreciate them, and roads are always just there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think part of the sort of frustration with taxes is, you pay taxes for these things that are sort of, they feel very unreal, and then you still get, you still have to keep all this money saved for if you have a medical problem, or if you have kids and they want to go to college, and various other things that other countries use taxes for
Mm-hmm.
that
Oh
we have
yeah, America's
decided
social
are
safety net is atrocious.
exactly. And I think that part of that lack of social safety net is contributes to the not wanting to pay taxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like a lot of people, they don't see the direct benefits because the social safety nets we have are threadbare at best. They still help an enormous amount of people with as limited as they are. Food
Hmm.
stamps being a really great example. People
Yeah.
need food, so you give them food. Um, Another thing is a lot of like state and local governments will provide like subsidies to food banks as well in that same measure.
Hmm.
I think actually an interesting question to ask. What do you think taxes should be used for, ideally? If we were able to create a perfect system, what would we want those taxes to go for?
I think ultimately, like you said, taxes are the price you pay for civilization. So if I'm paying taxes in order to live in this country, I think that um, I think that it should be free medical care. Like your taxes cover your medical care
Mm-hmm.
for everybody. I think that especially with the new, um, I mean, relatively new emphasis that's put on getting a college degree in order to be able to live a good life. Um, in a lot of cases, not in every case, and people are finding ways around that, but it is still really pushed. Um, I feel like if societally we are going to push that, then ideally taxes would also cover that. There are plenty of countries where college is free because of their taxation policies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with that. The only thing I would tack on, because I'm a bit of a nerd. I want a massive amount of funding to go towards things like NASA. Well,
I think that we need to take care of the people we have first.
yeah, yeah, that is always the like, you want to be moral and you want to be good. And on one hand, there's that, and
I'm
on the
being
other
completely
hand,
selfish.
spaceships. Yeah. On the other hand,
I don't really
spaceships.
care about spaceships, but uh, I would really like to be able to go into a doctor's office if I need, like, if I have a medical problem that's like threatening my life, and not worry about being in debt for the next several years.
Yeah, we want a society where you don't have to call a cab to go to the hospital instead of taking the ambulance because the cab is cheaper.
Yeah.
That's to me that's repugnant.
Have you seen any
Morally.
of the posts from like people in other countries that have socialized medicine where they're like, wait, you have to pay for an ambulance?
Yeah, it's and
Or you have
they're
to
like,
pay to have a baby?
yeah, they're freaking
Like,
out. Like many baby good example is a lot of countries will like legislate that companies give like paid maternity leave,
mhm.
whereas in America you're not guaranteed like hardly any maternity leave. I think what
In
was it? You only get
Switzerland,
like a couple of weeks.
you get 2 years per parent. At least you did a while ago.
Damn.
So that's 2 years maternity leave and 2 years paternity leave. So if you staggered those, you could stay home with your kid until they're ready to start kindergarten.
All right. Then next intriguing question. We've covered that taxes are the subscription to, or the price to pay for civilization,
There's
and
subscription to protection.
yeah, there's that too.
I would just like to actually be protected in
Where
more than just defensive ways.
where should those taxes come from? Should everyone? Because there's people in my life who are like, we should live on a flat rate tax system. Everyone is taxed at the exact same percentage, or do you think it should be a what is it called? A dynamic tax system, or a progressive tax system, where the more you make, the more you're taxed. Senator Bernie Sanders proposed a bill where people who make over $35 million are taxed at, I think it was like 35 or something percent. A much higher tax rate than your average person. But people who make up to like $30,000 or $20,000 a year were taxed at almost nothing. What do you think of that?
Right. I mean, I think that I don't know.
Should
I
everyone
don't know
should everyone
because
pay the
like part
exact
of
same
me is
taxes?
going, okay, if everybody was taxed 20%
Mm-hmm.
or 12% or 15% or whatever, if everybody was taxed that amount, then someone who's paying less would still, or who's earning less would still be paying less. But if you look at how dollars affect the economy, dollar for dollar, millionaires' dollars don't really have as much return,
Mm-hmm.
economically speaking, as um, people who have less money or poorer people's dollars.
Yeah, that's I forget the exact name of the that economic concept, but basically that's because richer people, millionaires and your billionaires, they tend to hoard their money in bank vaults,
Yeah.
whereas poor people tend to pass that $10 around and circulate it through the economy. You'll pay $10 for a cab, and that cabbie will spend that $10 on a sandwich, and then that person who made the sandwich will spend $10 like getting new shoes or something like that. That
Yeah.
$10 will get so much more use in the economy than sitting in some bank vault or sitting under someone's
Mm.
mattress.
Well, and I mean, it's not even, if you actually look, it's not even quote, quote, un-American to tax the rich
Hmm.
a lot.
I know, wasn't it? The tax
It's
rate was
only a
at like
very recent
91%.
concept to not tax them. Like, I think it was,
It
I'm
was
not going to say numbers
Eisenhower.
because I haven't seen this in a while, but like tax cuts are a new thing.
Yeah,
They're
that
not an
started
old
during the
thing.
Reagan era.
Yeah.
But before him, Eisenhower had the tax rate at like 90%,
I feel like it was 70, but
70%, still for like corporate tax rate. Whereas
yeah.
nowadays we're arguing should it be as high as like 21%,
Yeah.
or should it be lower, and businesses like Amazon and Apple and Walmart, they're not paying hardly anything in corporate taxes because they're jumping through so many loopholes.
Yeah. Well, and sort of the whole way that we do taxes in America is a little ridiculous. Um,
Oh yeah,
are you
definitely. Because
do you know how people do taxes in Japan?
their jobs do it for them, right?
They get a postcard in the mail from the government
Yeah, it's
that
just
has
like,
like a readout of what their taxes were that year. And if they have any like concerns, they can contact. But the postcard is all that's needed. Like they don't have to do it.
oh yeah, definitely. There was a really great act by I think a show called The Patriot Act or something like that.
Ah, yes. Yep, that's where I got my information too.
Yep, where he talked about how tax companies like H&R Block and
Hmm.
TurboTax lobby the government millions of dollars every year to keep
Hmm.
our tax system as complicated as possible, so that
so that
you
so
need,
they can charge us for it.
yeah, so you need H&R Block and TurboTax.
And then, of course, they make sure that it's really difficult to find the required free sites
Oh yeah,
that
where
they
you're
all
constantly
have to
jumping through
have. They
hoops.
all have to have a free service for doing your taxes, but those get buried.
Oh yeah, buried and hidden all the time.
Of course, I'm pretty sure that he put that Hassan Minaj put all of those companies like on one web page, the free sites,
Yeah, I think you did. I don't remember the name, but I really wish I could remember so I could link it.
right?
It'd be great.
Very cool.
All right, then let me ask, in your opinion, what are some of the worst ways that taxes are used nowadays?
I think that currently it is my opinion that in the places where we do spend a lot of our taxes, um, the largest of those, I don't know the exact numbers, but I do um, hold the opinion that the funding for the military and the funding for the police, for instance, goes entirely into um, the materials associated with those things, and the actual individuals who are in those jobs don't see enough of that money. I think that military and police are underpaid. I think that most public servants and most people who are paid with tax dollars are underpaid. Um, and I think that one of the places that we stumble in tax spending is focusing too much on the materials which the taxes can buy and not necessarily on the workers that we need in order to keep our country running and safe and functional.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. To add on to that, what I would say would be a misuse of taxes is I'm not a huge fan of like a lot of corporate subsidies. Like I know the farming industry needs to be maintained a lot, but places like Walmart or huge like shipping corporations and stuff like that.
Should be
I
able to handle their own shit.
yeah, they're like some of the most profitable companies on the planet. They should absolutely just be able to fund themselves without the government giving them handouts, especially when they're paying their workers as shittily as they do.
Yeah.
I think if you're raking in hundreds of billions of dollars in profit every year, you shouldn't get any government handouts whatsoever. And if you do, it should come with a little tag saying, all right, but now you need to pay your workers like,
Yeah.
$15-20 an hour because you can clearly afford it.
Well, yes, and at the very least, a government subsidy should mandate a living wage for workers in order to qualify for it, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's a really great jumping off point into the next topic is what do you think the government's role in business should be? Do you think it should be all hands off, anarcho capitalists, you know, government has no involvement
No.
in business at all? Or do you think it should be all hands on and the government owns businesses and regulates them to what extent? Where's your position on that?
I think that I don't I don't think it should be all hands on. But I also absolutely do not think that the current mostly hands off slash puppet hands policy that we have right now work. I think that first and foremost, I'm going to bring it back to people again. The government exists. If you think about it, like the reason that we make governments is to help us live together in a society. And as such, I think that governments need to do more to make sure that their workers are protected, no matter who they work for. Um,
Absolutely. I 100% agree there.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing is I think that we need to um make sure that workers aren't getting screwed over because right now they are.
Mm-hmm.
Um and and we've already proven that people will not do that on their own. So with that knowledge, I think that it's something that needs to be more aggressively overseen by government.
Mm-hmm. And
And by
what?
aggressive, I mean persistent, not
Mm-hmm.
other forms of aggressive.
Yeah. One thing I would tack onto that is that also I think there should be like some sort of like government incentives to build unions and to make unions strong. First of all, worker protections need to be
Yeah.
massively increased.
hmm
And
That's
then,
that's basically what I meant.
yeah, big, strong unions. Because, man, I forget which European country has less worker protections than America has, but they have extremely strong unions.
Uh,
And
I
there's
do
like,
know that in uh, I think it was Denmark. It was either Denmark or the Netherlands. One of my roommates was telling me that they had just read about how in either Denmark or the Netherlands, and I
mm-hmm.
can't remember, and I'm so sorry to everyone.
It's all right.
Um, the the starting rate at like Burger King is $20 an hour, and they get 4 weeks vacation a year,
Yeah, it's always the
and it's
thing, you
because
know.
they unionized.
Yeah, it's always the thing you hammer home with. Usually, predominantly, most anarcho-capitalists come from America, with very little knowledge of what happens in other countries. Because as soon
Yeah,
as they're like, if you pay McDonald's workers a living wage, they'll just replace them all with machines. And it's like, first of all, if they could afford to replace every worker with a machine, they absolutely
they would have
would.
done it already.
Workers are more expensive than machines. Second of all, other countries already force the corporations to pay a living wage, and their burgers are not that more expensive.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
you have fallen for the propaganda, my friend. You know,
hmm
you've drank that Kool-Aid. Here, take this copy of the Communist Manifesto, read it, come back to me, all right? Become based. All right, well, I think is there any other topics we want to touch on? I think that about wraps it up.
Not that I can really think of. I think that's about what I've got to say on this subject.
All right, awesome. Then to our listeners, thank you for listening. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any other subjects you want us to cover, go ahead and leave them in the comments down below. Subscribe for more, and we'll see you next week. Take care, and good night.
Bye.